Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Sergeant Ranjan with Uniform Recruitment Unit for the OPP, and welcome to another session of AMA with me. As we wait for people to hop on and get settled, just a few things I want to kind of discuss with you. One, our next intake is coming up. We're looking forward to welcoming our new recruits on March 1st. And you know what? I want to kind of talk about that because I've been getting calls from a lot of people that have been receiving their job offers. A lot of people that have met at shuttle runs, at information sessions, at our outreach events. I know those people that we have kind of spoke to, coached, mentored, and really helped answer all the questions, 1,001 questions as they go through the process. When they all make it to the end, certainly it's nice to hear calls from them. So I've been getting a few calls now, so I want to kind of share that. If you're in the process or if you're at the final stages and you're waiting to hear back on that, be patient. We're still offering positions for the March 1st intake. So those of you that are in the process or waiting at the end, I'm wishing you all the very best, and I'm pulling for you. The other thing I want to talk about was the auto show. So as you know, OPP will be participating just like we have for many years. We will be there from the 13th to the 22nd, which is the entirety of the auto show happening at the Metro Toronto Convention Center in Toronto. Certainly, I will be there. A lot of my fellow recruiters from across the province that you either interacted at our outreach events or information sessions, they will all be there throughout the days. So if you're in Toronto, if you're visiting Toronto, certainly auto show is a big attraction, and certainly we will be there. You'll get a chance to interact with us, but certainly not only that, see some of the vehicles and specialty vehicles that we utilize in our day-to-day work. You can get in them, take pictures with them, certainly talk about any questions that you have about them. So certainly I look forward to seeing you there. I will be there. So look forward to meeting many of you there. I think from the last event last year, a few people that I met there that maybe didn't consider this profession certainly did apply, and they were able to get hired. So looking forward to potentially new candidates that we can get through in the process. And again, thanks for those of you joining in. Certainly, if you have any questions about the hiring process or the recruitment process, please put them on the chat here. I will see it, and certainly I will be able to address it as we go through the session today. I can see people are logging in, which is great. And one final thing, in the past, I think 2-3 weeks, I've been at shuttle run sessions, information sessions. We've had a lot of people show up. We've had really good engagement and tons of interest, not only for our constable position, but certainly for our auxiliary position, cadet, special constables, even our civilian position. So, if you're logging in today and you want to know more about those positions, please make sure you ask the question because I will be more than happy to address them or make sure I give you the right direction in terms of where you need to go to look into them. And one of the positions certainly that are posted right now for the Ontario Public Service is also the summer student position. So if that is something that is interesting to you, or you're currently a post-secondary student, make sure you go check that out to see the positions available. And who knows, maybe you might be working in our unit. I know we've had some summer students throughout the years working in the recruitment unit, so looking forward to that. So the topic that I'd like to kind of touch on and talk about today, again, we'll talk about everything, but certainly a focus because of questions that we've been getting at my information sessions and certainly through our outreach emails. People that are maybe new Canadians, people that are coming to our country, looking to make that transition to a career path, and maybe they don't know much about the policing profession or the OPP as an overall organization. And their questions about being, they have the right criteria or education. I'm going to kind of touch on that today as we go through. And certainly people that are also looking for the second career. As you know, there's been a lot of changes in society in terms of job opportunities not being available as it used to be. So a lot of people are also looking for that second career opportunity, and I want to kind of touch on that too, in terms of some of the skill sets that you might have from your first profession or your second profession, and how you can transition into a policing role, even if you don't have any policing experience or any law enforcement experience. Certainly, I want to touch on that as we go on. So again, right off the bat there, I think one of the questions that popped up, what are the basic eligibility requirements for new Canadians interested in a policing career? And also to jump on that second part of it, how does the permanent residency status factor into the application process? So I'll address that. So the minimum requirements that you need to meet, whether you're a new Canadian or a member that is interested in applying for this career, you have to be 18 years of age or older, and there is no age cutoff, right? As long as you're 18 years of age or older, you meet the requirement. You have to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. So I think that's where the part about being a new Canadian, you would have to look at your status in Canada. If you're on a work visa or a student visa, certainly those are things that will impact you in terms of your eligibility criteria. But you need to be a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. Those are the two factors that you need to meet as part of the requirement. If you have your permanent residency status, there's no waiting period. So the moment you have that, even if you don't have the physical card with you, you are eligible to apply. So again, 18 years of age or older, permanent resident or Canadian citizen, you have to have a high school education. So for those of you that are new to our country, or you have been educated in another country, we will accept your credentials. All you have to do is make sure that your educational standards or your educational credentials are assessed for Ontario standards so that it meets the eligibility criteria. So when you go on our website at oppa.ca/careers, we have a third-party link where a company will assess your education standards and let you know whether you meet the eligibility criteria, and you can apply with that. Okay, so again, those are three requirements right there. The fourth one being, you have to have a driver's license. You have to have a G license with no more than 6 demerit points. So you have to have full driving privileges, and you can't have more than 6 demerit points. Okay. The other thing being, you can't have a criminal record. If you did have a criminal record, you have to make sure you have received a pardon for that record. Okay, and you have to be able to read, write, and speak English. That is a mandatory requirement for you to go through the hiring process. The other thing being, you have to be able to pass a level 7 or achieve a level 7 on the shuttle run, which is a fitness test. And I'll speak more about that as I go through the rest of the session today. And finally, when you go through our hiring process, you will be assessed, in terms of looking at your finances. There will be a background investigation that will encompass, along with the psych testing that will happen as you go through the process. So those are in the latter part of our hiring stages that you need to go through. And finally, you would need your level C and standard first aid CPR, but you do not need to have this right at the application stage. You can have this right before we offer you an offer of employment. So those are the minimum requirements that you need to meet, whether you are a new Canadian or a current member looking to apply to the OPP. And I also addressed the permanent residency issue. It's the situation where you have to have it, but you don't have to have the physical card. As long as you're eligible and you receive notification that you have been given your permanent residency, you are eligible to apply. Okay. The other question here, are there supports available for applicants who are still improving their English or French language skills? So great question. We personally, as an organization, we are unable to offer you any sort of coaching or mentoring on that particular subject, just based on just resources. We don't have the resource capability to focus on every single individual that asks for that type of help. But there are many private companies that offer that, and I'm sure you can find that online in various areas where there are people that will coach you, tutor you, mentor you to improve your reading, writing, and comprehension of the English language. So if you feel that maybe you're not strong as you think you should be in the English language, certainly go get that help, so that way when you go through our process, you're a competitive candidate. Question here about, can I transfer from UK Metro Police? So I assume you're a police officer in United Kingdom, and you want to transfer over to us. As long as you meet the experienced police officer criteria. So one, there's two ways to go about it. Either you would go through the regular constable process, or you would go through the experienced police officer process if you meet the criteria. But I'm going to make an assumption here that maybe you're not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. In that scenario, you would have to go through the regular hiring process. Certainly, the skill sets that you've gained, all the experience that you've had to date, will be a benefit for you because that'll make you a very competitive candidate. But you would still need to meet the hiring eligibility. One being certainly the permanent residency and Canadian citizen. Okay, so that's one thing that you would need to consider. So another question here from a candidate. Looks like they're in our process. They applied a few weeks ago and they haven't heard anything back from us. So I would say just be patient. As you know, we're accepting applications every single day. It's being submitted through our online portal every single day. Just be patient as we assess and get to your application. Also, look at your portal. Usually on the portal, it'll show you the status of your application. They'll tell you where you are as you're going through each stage. So that gives you a good understanding and an idea of where it stands. So wait to hear back. If there's something missing on your application, certainly we'll email you back and get in touch with you to make sure you upload the required documents. If you still haven't heard back from us in a few more weeks, certainly I implore you to email us so that way we can certainly look at what the situation is. Okay. Another question here about wearing glasses. This is a question about vision that I get constantly, whether it's at our in-person sessions or certainly through phone calls and emails. So there is a vision standard you have to meet. And if you go on our website at oppa.ca/careers, and if you go to the frequently asked questions page, we break down what the vision standard is and also our hearing standard. So there are two criteria that you need to meet. If you achieve your OACP certificate, again, OPP does not require the OACP certificate to go through our hiring process. But if you do get that certificate, as if you're applying to other municipal services, certainly that vision and hearing portion would be assessed through them. But if you're not doing that and you're applying directly to us, what I would really suggest that you do, if you're concerned about this, please go get yourself tested. Get yourself tested by an audiologist or an optometrist just to make sure that you meet these standards. Because if you're going through the process, you make it all the way to the end and you get to the medical stage. And, at that point, you go to get your vision and hearing tested and you find out that you don't meet either of those standards. Unfortunately, we won't be able to give you a job offer because you still have to pass the medical. So I would really, really highly suggest that you take some initiative, go get yourself tested if you are concerned about that particular situation. Okay. Good question, though. Are there accommodations for applicants unfamiliar with Canadian driving standards, laws, or testing? So again, prior to even applying, you need to have your G license. And for you to get your G license, you got to go through the Ministry of Transportation testing. So, one way you can do that is by going and taking driving lessons and driving classes. There's a lot of companies out there that accredited companies that offer driving lessons and lessons in terms of understanding what the rules and regulations are prior to driving. So I would really encourage you to go get those testings done or get the knowledge portion done. So that way you can go through, G1, G2, and your full G license to obtain your full G license. And certainly once you're hired, we will train you with police vehicle operations training at the Ontario Police College and even at the Provincial Police Academy. But certainly you would need to have your full driving credential before you apply. Okay, so hope that helps. How do we assess your driving? Your English. So during our hiring process, you will be doing a time test, which is called the Sigma test, which is a 35-minute time test as part of the background investigation phase. And in that test, we assess your reading, writing, and comprehension on that assessment. So certainly, we want to make sure that you have the capability to understand what's being written, what's being said to you, and you're able to, transcribe the information and answer it accordingly. So certainly there is an assessment that we do. And also, as you're going through the entire process, whether it's at the interview, the application stage, or the background phase, or the psych stage, certainly we are also assessing your reading, writing, and comprehension skill to see that you meet standards. Okay. Great question, though. Question here, Sarge, I graduated from OPC through a different service and received my OPC certificate almost 2 years ago. If I get hired, do I have to go to OPC again? So I guess, Ray, I guess one of my questions would be, are you a current police officer, or are you someone that did work for a police service and then you left the service? So again, those are some questions I would have in terms of answering your question. But if you are, whether you're current or within the 2-year period of working for a police service, you can actually apply to us as an experienced police officer. And no, you do not need to go back to the Ontario Police College. You would only need to complete the 4-week training program that we offer for experienced police officers. Certainly, if you're over the 2 years, certainly then you would have to go through the regular hiring process with us. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Question about fitness. Are PIN and the prep test both required? So in our hiring process currently, I know other services have different requirements, but specifically speaking for the OPP, the only fitness testing that we assess you on is the shuttle run. You need to be able to achieve level 7 on the shuttle run with us. And we do it twice in the process. One at the start of the hiring stages. So right after you submit your application, the next phase of assessment is your fitness testing, where you need to either send us a video showing us that you're capable of achieving level 7 virtually, or you can physically show up at one of our shuttle run sessions that we host in person throughout every single region monthly. You can actually physically show up and run in front of us, as me and my colleagues are fitness appraisers, so that way we test you in person. So that is one area where when you'd be tested, and right after the job offer is given to you, we will also require you to show up and do a shuttle run to show us that you've kept your fitness up, right? So those are the 2 times that you would have to do it in our hiring process. Okay. What strengths? Question here: what strengths do you see most often in applicants who immigrate to Canada? So I'm assuming you're asking the question, what sort of areas do people showcase that make them successful in our hiring process? I think, I can probably point out so many factors, right? I think the great thing about policing or entering this career, you do not have to have any prior law enforcement experience, because we're confident that when you are hired and you attend the Ontario Police College and you attend the Provincial Police Academy for post OPC training, we will be able to top you up and bring you up to date, up to speed, from 0 to 100, right? And then obviously when you hit the detachment, when you report to your detachment and you work with your coach officer during your 1-year probationary period, certainly all the things that you've been taught will also be enhanced. So we're confident that if you don't have any of those skill sets from a law enforcement perspective, that we can get that for you. But what are we looking for beyond that? I think you need to have the right motivation. I think you need to have the right motivation to enter this career. One of the questions you probably will be asked is why you want to be a police officer. That's a question you probably should expect. So, if you're considering this career, you should probably look at yourself in the mirror and try to answer that question. Why is it that you want this profession, right? This profession has challenges. It has a lot of challenges you face. And obviously there's an element of danger that comes with this profession. So you have to look at yourself and see, do you have the right mindset? Do you have the right motivation to pursue this career? Certainly, you have to be a team-oriented person. You have to be someone that can interact with the public, because, this profession is all about dealing with the public and solving problems, right? So you have to have a strong composure, strong will, because I think certainly you are tested in multiple facets when you're in this career, whether you're a brand new officer or certainly as you're progressing through your profession, right? So I think that's what we're looking for, those intangible skill sets that set you apart. Anything from education, no matter what sort of education background you have, certainly it'll be a benefit to you, but we're not looking for specific skill sets in that sense. the intangible factors is what we're looking for. From motivation, the leadership skills, your life skills, life experience, right? Certainly fitness, commitment to fitness is what we're looking for. And again, these are also things that speak to the 10 areas of assessments that we speak to. Whether if you've attended our information session, certainly we talk about that all the time, because the 10 areas of assessment is what we look for in applicants at the application stage, at the interview stage, and certainly as you go through the whole hiring process. Okay, but great question. And the question here: if I change my detachment posting selections to northern detachments, does that give me a better chance of being hired? We're looking to hire people for the whole province. As you know, every single region, every single detachment needs officers to function. So when you go on our website and you look at all the detachments that you can actually pick from, it's a huge benefit because you have the flexibility to pick 6 detachments, any 6 detachments that you want to be posted in, right? If you pick certainly the northern detachment, whether it's the northeast region or the northwest region, certainly the duration posting would be one that you would consider. But just because you pick those detachments doesn't mean it gives you a leg up as you go through the hiring process. You would still be required to do and complete every single stage successfully for you to be given a job offer. Certainly, it is enticing when you put northern detachments as part of your selection process. Certainly, we will flag that, but you would still be required to finish every single stage successfully. Okay. Question about if you lack in one of the areas of assessment, should you still apply if all your other areas are solid? Excuse me. Absolutely, you should, because the 10 areas of assessment is to assess you as an overall candidate, in terms of your candidacy for the policing career that we assess you on. And many candidates might not be able to hit all 10 areas. That happens all the time. But that's where maybe you might not excel in one area, but maybe in all the other areas you might be really, really strong, and that's fine. We will look at that and take that into consideration when we look at your application. So don't sell yourself short. I would say submit the application. If you feel you're competitive, maybe you're not hitting all 10 areas, but you certainly feel that you're competitive, apply, because I think that's what will let you know where you stand in the hiring process, right? And you might actually surprise yourself. And you might get that call from our employment coordinator. So certainly apply and see how you do. And if for whatever reason, if you're not successful in the process, at least you have a benchmark that you can put at and kind of reassess to see where you need to improve, or certainly you can reach out to us and we can have a conversation about that. Okay. Question about how long does the process typically take from application to training for new Canadians? Is it different than long-time Canadian citizens? No. So the great thing is the initial point of enter this profession as a second career, game platform in terms of guidelines and timelines. The only thing that sets apart, or each candidate apart, is what they bring to the table from a competitive standpoint, right? Usually we say the whole process from application submission to job offer can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months, but that's again everything being equal. There are scenarios where some applicants move through the process much quicker, sometimes 4 months or even sooner, and some applicants it takes more than 6 months. And again, there's various factors to that. Some people have like a lengthy employment history or a lengthy education system, or they have a lot of information in terms of in their background that needs to be assessed, and it takes time, right? It takes a lot of time. So depending on your particular situation, particular background, and some people again live abroad. They've lived abroad. They lived in other countries or multiple countries. Again, now it takes more time to look into that and assess that. So certainly 4 to 6 months is what we're seeing on the majority of candidates that go through our process. Closer to 4 months is pretty typical too. So I would say just apply, let the process unfold, and see how you do. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to the recruitment unit so we can address that. Okay. Thank you for the question, everyone. So clearly, all I see is the chat going off. No, people from Louisiana. joining the call. So that's always good too. We're always looking for. It's funny because I think a couple of weeks ago I interviewed somebody. They were physically, living in another country, but certainly they met all the criteria and the eligibility parameters. They were Kenyan citizens living in another country, but certainly we were able to conduct the interview and still give him the opportunity to go through our hiring process, which also speaks to the flexibility that we have in our hiring process to do that. So, which is something I always kind of feel good about. And another question here: what would you say to someone who is nervous about the local focus interview, especially the behavioral style question? So, good question. We get this all the time. What you need to understand is, again, the interview that we conduct. I know other police services have various other ways of conducting their interview, but the interview that we conduct is a one-on-one interview currently, and currently we do virtual style interview. So right off the bat, the virtual style interview is a bit nerve-wracking for people because you're not physically in front of your interviewer. You can't gauge the interviewer. So it is a bit different. If you have no experience doing a virtual interview, certainly that adds a bit more nervousness to it. But I would say you should approach the interview, in a very positive and engaging manner with energy. Our goal is to make sure that you feel comfortable, you feel settled. We're not looking to make you feel intimidated or put you at an unease type of a situation. We want to make sure we understand why you've chosen this profession, why you've chosen to pursue policing as a career, and we want you to talk and elaborate and explain things during the interview. And most of the things that we will be talking about during the interview will be all about you. Your resume, all the applications, all the relevant documents that you submitted. Those are the things that we will be diving into. And I think most people initially they are nervous. I'll be honest. People are nervous, but we as recruiters, I think we do a really good job of making sure we calm their nerves down and really try to get them into a mood where they're feeling comfortable to talk and share. And I think most people towards the end, as they complete the interview, they feel very good about it. They feel like it's more of a conversation base. It's more of a conversation type of interview than anything else. And the whole competency side of it, again, that's also essential competency interview that we do. We're looking for you to share examples. We're looking for you to share examples on relevant topics. It could be about anything, but for example, maybe depending on what the recruiter asks you, maybe problem solving or teamwork. So different competencies that we may ask you. As long as you're able to articulate it, talk about what you did in that particular competency, that's what we're looking to capture, right? Because again, when you hit the road as an officer, there's a lot of scenarios that you'll be put into where you have to take action, you have to take the lead and the leadership role. So we want to know that you've already done this in your current life or in your past professions or school or wherever it is, and we want you to be able to talk about it, right? So hopefully that helps in terms of answering that question for you. As a newcomer on permanent residency, what's the lengthiest thing to get done? Probably the full G license. I think certainly, if you already have your education from another country, certainly all you have to do is go and just get your assessments done. Certainly, even if you have a full driving privilege from another country, certainly you can go to the Ministry of Transportation and see if your current driving license from that particular country is recognized by the province of Ontario. I know there are several countries where you can do that. So I would say go get that done. But if you don't have any sort of driving experience or don't have a license, certainly I think that would be your longest in terms of what you need to do to go through the process to get the training and go through the assessments to get your full driving privilege. So certainly that'd be a good one to highlight. Regarding the driving history from a different country, I have a valid driver's license for only 15 days before I moved to Canada, but it has been 6 years and I'm now really struggling to get the documentation from that country. I can see why that would be a struggle, and certainly I'm not sure what country you're from. Certainly, one of the ways is for you to go to the embassy. If your country has an embassy here in Canada, where you came from, certainly that would be a good starting point to see if you can initiate that transaction. Or certainly if you have friends or family members that live in your country, that you can probably provide documentation to get the process started. That would be another way. But if you're in a situation where that is a bit difficult, it would be challenging. I understand. I know a few people have reached out to me about this, and it's a case-by-case basis because we don't have any sort of authority or any sort of reach to offer you any sort of help in that scenario. You would have to go through what are the parameters those countries have set to get that documentation. Or certainly, try your best. And if you are having trouble and you're having a very, very difficult time obtaining these documents, please let us know as you go through our process, and then we will assess it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what it is that we're looking for and how that impacts you. Okay, so hopefully that helps. While police foundations isn't a necessary requirement, does it enhance an application? This goes back to my initial point about your background when it comes to education or experience. Again, police foundations program is not a mandatory requirement for you to apply to the OPP to be a police officer. But certainly, if you are looking to get experience or understand what policing is or what law enforcement is, and it's more about your own level of comfort. If you want to be more prepared, if you want to have more of an understanding of what you're getting into, certainly you can look into the program. I would say look into the programs at multiple colleges and universities that are offered. Certainly there's a cost associated to taking these programs through any sort of university or college. So you have to assess all that, right? From a financial perspective, are you getting what you're looking for? And is that going to benefit you as you apply to go through a policing service? So these are the things that I would say you need to consider before taking the program. Okay. Great questions, everybody. So great questions. Thank you. I appreciate it. How can I best prepare for the interview if I don't have Canadian work experience yet? Well, you don't need to. You don't need to have Canadian work experience. So if you have employment experience anywhere, even out of Canada in another country, that is still experience that you can bring to the table. So if maybe you were a pilot, for example's sake, maybe you were a pilot in another country, that experience absolutely will benefit you when you apply, because you can probably speak to the education that you probably needed to get that pilot license, the amount of hours flying that you needed, the practical experience that you need to obtain to get that pilot's job, to fly a plane or a helicopter or whatever it is that you did, right? So any skill sets or any specialty skill sets that you have, no matter where you obtained it, that is recognized. And certainly in the interview, we talk about it. So, for example, one of the areas of assessment is our special skills. For me, I would say my special skill, or one of the skills that I'm proud to have, is my language skills. I do speak a second language. I speak Tamil. So certainly that has come come to help me in many ways in my policing career, on and off duty. So certainly that is something I am very proud to have. So many of you out there probably have many other special skills that enhance your ability and enhance your application. So make sure you talk about that and list it, because again, we want you to sell yourself and promote yourself when it comes to that skill set. Okay. How does the service support officers who may be adjusting to Canadian laws? I'm trying to understand the context of your question. Maybe you can kind of rephrase that. Again, when you take that oath, whether it's your permanent residency or Canadian citizen oath, certainly you're taking the oath to follow all the rules and regulations, including the laws set forth in Canada, right? So certainly when it comes to driving, certainly there are laws and rules that you need to follow. Again, we will look at all that, right? If you're just asking the question to understand what these laws are, it's readily available to you, where you can go read up on the Criminal Code of Canada, the Ontario Human Rights Code, certainly our traffic rules. All these things are available to you for you to read. Even if you want to prepare to pursue this career, certainly you can look at all these things prior to understand how this all works, right? It's available to you. I'm trying to scroll here to see if I missed any of your questions. A question here: I did my psychological testing a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still waiting to hear back for the interview? Is this waiting period normal? Yeah, so if you only did your written portion of your psych testing a few weeks ago, you are still required to complete the interview portion. And probably what's happening now, we're just waiting for an interview slot to be open. So once an interview slot opens up, you will be contacted by one of our administrators to schedule that interview. Okay, and all the very best, all the very, very, very best with that. You're almost at the end. You're almost at the end. Okay, great question about specific units. Are there any specific units or specialty areas that may benefit from a multicultural, that would benefit a multicultural member or from a multicultural member? How could I answer that? Certainly, I think it doesn't matter which, what your background is or what your heritage is. Certainly, maybe a language that you speak might come in handy depending on investigations that we're involved in, because if you speak a specific language and the investigation that is happening happens to have that particular member speaking that language, certainly there's a benefit there because you'll be able to understand the nuances. You'll be able to maybe understand them from a cultural perspective to aid that investigation, which I have done before. So certainly, yes, from that perspective, absolutely, you'll be utilized in a way where you might be able to provide more help than maybe a member that doesn't speak that language or come from that community or that background. So certainly, these are things in terms of skill sets that we assess throughout the organization when we need to lean on each other to help solve any sort of major investigation, right? So yes, absolutely, that's a great question. Speaking, I guess one of the questions about what's the difference between ERT, ERT, and TRUE. So ERT is the emergency response unit, and TRUE is the tactics and rescue unit. So if you can look at like, how can I, in a context of, maybe a professional athlete, for example, maybe like an NCAA compared to the NBA in a basketball context. Certainly the TRUE would be the top tier when it comes to specialized units, when it comes to any sort of major investigations where we need them for any sort of breaching or assistance. But TRUE would be the ERT members would be working out of detachments throughout the whole province where you need any sort of assistance on a day-to-day basis. So again, if you look at like a standard of, top tier professional, and then you have the secondary, that's how I would break it down. But both are very, very capable and really well trained. I know a lot of members that are part of the ERT team and the TRUE team. Certainly when required, they're called upon to answer the call. So that's what I would say. And if you're interested in those specific positions, certainly, we can go and tell you more about it. Usually I talk about it at our information sessions where we get specific questions about it. So certainly, please, if you are interested in that, certainly reach out to us. Okay. What strengths do you see most often in applicants who immigrate to Canada? Certainly language skills. That's a big one. Certainly you have, the cultural aspect that you can bring to the table. And as you know, Canada is a melting pot in the sense that it's very, very multicultural, especially if you go around the GTA. Not only the GTA, even beyond the GTA, it's becoming very, very multicultural. And we as a police organization, as a police service, certainly want to be representative of the communities that we serve. So certainly we want to make sure we have the right languages, we have the right people represented across the province and across different communities. So, when you need to lean on members to help or assist the public, it's easier because, for example, when you show up and maybe you're a member of the Muslim community or a Sikh community, and you attend a call for service, and if that member only speaks, Punjabi or Gujarati, it's easier for them to communicate with you if you speak that same language or if you have that same background and the cultural relevance. So these are things that certainly matter because it certainly helps build that bridge and the gap between a police service and the community. So those are things certainly is beneficial. But when it comes to any sort of education or experience, those are things that will help you, but it's not particular. We're not looking for anything particular where you need to have law enforcement experience or certain education related to law enforcement. You can have any sort of education, you can have any sort of employment history or experience, and we will still seek you out as a competitive candidate. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay. I know most of the questions I've been answering have been about the constable position, but certainly we are, sorry, excuse me, but we are accepting applications for the auxiliary position, certainly the cadet position. And the cadet position, you won't be able to apply directly through our portal. But if you are interested in a cadet position, you would still apply through the regular constable portal. And in your resume and your cover letter, you can make the indication that you're interested in a cadet position, and then we will assess whether you're a good fit for the cadet position. And if you are, certainly we'll put you in that stream. But maybe if you're competitive for a constable, then certainly we'll let you continue in the constable stream. And touching on the auxiliary program, we are accepting applications for the auxiliary program. And for those of you maybe that don't know much about the auxiliary program, what I would suggest, one, go on our website, read about it to understand what it's all about. It's a voluntary position. It's not a paid position, unlike the constable, the cadet, or the special constable position. But what I find most of our auxiliaries benefit from, one, if you're looking to pursue the constable position, but you feel a bit hesitant or you're on the wall about whether you want to pursue this career, I would say give the auxiliary position a chance. Because when you join us as an auxiliary member, one, you get to work out of a detachment, you get to engage with all of our uniform members, you actually get to go on ride-alongs or do shifts with officers, and also you get to come out to all the community events that we engage in. So it kind of makes you understand what the policing profession is all about, but it also gives you the inside knowledge about what the OPP as an organization, how it functions, and really gives you a step up as you pursue this policing career. So many auxiliaries do use the auxiliary position as a stepping stone to eventually pursue the constable position. So certainly, if that is something that's interesting to you, please look into it. I would highly encourage you to apply to that. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to see if one of the questions here: what advice would you give to someone who doubts whether they fit the policing world? Yeah, great question. I think you got to look at what it is that you're trying to get from this profession, right? Why is it that you want this profession? I would say this profession, being in it for 13 years now, having had a chance to do various roles throughout the organization, I think this profession is very unique compared to some of the other type of careers out there. It's challenging at times. Certainly, I talked about the element of danger. There is an element of danger when it comes to this profession. Certainly, there's a lot of benefits in the sense of you're working in a team environment. You're working in a problem solving type of environment. And public engagement, a huge piece of what we do is public engagement and public assistance, right? Because people are calling us because they need help solving something, or they need help overall. So again, it's very, very unique in that sense. I think coming back to what I said initially, I think it really does come back to your motivation, your where you are in life and what is it that you're trying to pursue. What sort of purpose is it that you're looking for in this profession? I knew from a very young age that I couldn't do an office type of a role. I needed to be out there engaging with people. Certainly in my role as a recruiter, I get to do that day in and day out, which I'm very thankful for. But again, I think if you talk to every single police officer, in no matter what role they are in, certainly they have something in that element of a role that really ignites their passion. I think that's what you need to find. Everybody starts off as a frontline constable, right? That's where everyone that's hired starts off. But as they move on in their career, they try and find what is unique that the organization is offering in terms of a position and the skill sets it aligns them with. And that's where I think it's a perfect match. So I think, in due time, every single officer eventually does get there where they find the position. And again, I think we have hundreds and hundreds of positions throughout the organization in terms of specialty units and roles. And I think every single officer eventually does reach that position that's a perfect fit for them. So I think, it takes time for you to find it, but eventually most do. But I think you got to look at what it is that's motivating you to pursue this profession. If you pick it for the right reasons, I think you won't regret it. All right, so certainly keep that in mind. Well, okay, so we're almost coming to an end here. We got less than maybe 15 minutes to go. Let me see if I can address some of the other questions that I haven't gotten to. And again, thank you. I really appreciate the questions, everyone. I just saw a comment. It kind of made me laugh. Okay. Gotta focus now. Get back into this. Okay. I'm still learning Canadian slang and cultural norms. Is that something recruits struggle with? I'm going to say no. No, I'm going to say no. I don't think you're going to struggle with it. Again, we're not looking for you to learn the Canadian slang. What we're looking for you to do is to give your best, like whether it's in training, when you're hitting the road as a probationary officer, we're asking you to give your all, your best at learning the profession, but also going out there and serving the public to the best of your ability. And I think we have all the checks and balances in place. When it comes to your training that we focus on at the Provincial Academy, at the Ontario Police College, but when you hit the road as a probationary officer and you're paired up with the coach officer, certainly, your learning goes to another level because everything that you've been taught at training, now you're able to put into practice as you're on the road. So I would say, we do a really, really good job of making sure we get you prepared, but there is an onus on you as a candidate to make sure that you're focused, you're invested in it, you're doing the learning and the studying portion that you're supposed to do. So that way, when it comes to the end, it's a perfect fit. All right. So I would say definitely that comes to mind. Just trying to see if we can catch a few more sessions here. Oh, a name that I recognize, John Danku. Great job, Prash. Proud of you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it, John. I used to work with John in my previous profession, so I appreciate that, John. Hope you're well, and thanks for logging in. Okay, so again, a few more questions that I'll get to as we usually the hour always flies by when we're doing these sessions. Again, just to recap some of the things I talked about, March 1st is our next intake. So for those of you that are in our process, that have completed every stage of our process, please be patient. Our calls are still going out to fill the class. I hope you get that call. Certainly, it's been some time for me when I got my call, but I can still recall, the feeling. Because, when you're at the end, and it's so nerve-wracking because at this point, you've completed all the stages. You're just waiting for that yes or no. I remember anytime I would get the call, I'd be pushing people out of the way to go get that call. So, it's a bit nerve-wracking waiting. But we have things that we do on our end here just to make sure all the checks and balances are completed. But if you get that call, certainly it's a call that it's memorable and you never forget. So for those of you that are in that stage, just patiently wait, and I wish you all the best. The other big thing I want to make sure I highlight, the auto show is coming up. Certainly, we're going to be there. We have a booth, massive setup with vehicles and recruiters and constables representing all the different detachments throughout the province. So if you're interested in talking to our members, understanding what they did or what they currently do, how their journey was, what set them apart to be hired, please come on down to the auto show. We're going to be there throughout the whole day and all the days the show runs. And I certainly look forward to meeting many of you there, hopefully, to answer any questions that you have about the hiring process or in policing general, right? So, and it's always a great time meeting people at the auto show. And certainly the other thing I would encourage many of you to do, if you can't make it down to the auto show, if you go on our website, oppa.ca/careers, and you go to our events page at the bottom, you will see all the events that are coming up throughout the province that we are going to be at, whether it's at the fitness sessions that we host, information sessions, certainly the virtual ones that we do, but also many private events that we attend. So there are so many opportunities for you to engage with us, and certainly we would love to see you and talk to you and potentially hire you, if certainly this is the career that you're interested in. Okay. Let's see here. Final questions. As we wrap up. I'm just gonna go up here. Here we go. So a question here about can you discuss facial hair for men's standards and certainly female? So certainly we expect our officers to be professional, and certainly the way you look in uniform is something that we look to. So certainly for men, if you're allowed to have facial hair, that's not a problem, as long as it's properly trimmed and kept neat and tidy. And certainly for our female members, that's the same expectation, whether with your hair put in a neatly tied bun. And certainly for our officers, when it comes to hair, certainly to be properly cut. So that is something that you don't need to be afraid of. Certainly, I get that question: if you have a beard, do I need to shave it? No, as long as it's properly trimmed and kept in a very professional manner, it is certainly acceptable. And we have our police orders that guide us with that. Okay. One last question. Maybe I'll finish with this one. What's one thing you wish someone had told you before you applied? Good question. I'm trying to think. I think I delayed my application. I delayed applying to the OPP and policing because I felt I wasn't competitive overall. I felt maybe I needed more particular experience, maybe in the law enforcement field, getting law enforcement experience. So I delayed that by, working at a few other jobs that gave me the security experience. I don't regret it. Because certainly, by doing some of the jobs that I did, and being a special constable certainly gave me a lot of confidence in my ability. It truly made me understand what this profession is prior to getting into policing. But certainly, I think there was a bit of doubt that I faced myself, thinking maybe I'm not competitive. Going back, maybe I think I could have applied earlier instead of waiting as long as I did. I think if I could go back and change that, I just would have applied a lot sooner instead of taking the time to apply. So I think that's a small minor regret, not really a regret, but if I could go back and change that, certainly that's something I would have done. Okay. So in saying that, again, sorry I wasn't able to get to every single question that was posted. To be honest, there were too many questions. I didn't expect all these questions. So I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the questions. If I missed your question, I hope to see you at one of our events so I can answer that question that I missed. All right. But again, thank you for the engagement. Thank you for joining us on another session of Ask Me Anything. Every single session that we do, we try to tackle different topics or talk about things that benefit you as an applicant, and certainly all the things that we're seeing in terms of trends or questions that we get that might be helpful if we discuss it in this forum. So thanks again. Yes, final question. You do not require the OACP certificate to apply to the OPP. Okay. You can directly apply to the OPP by going to oppa.ca/careers. You can start your portal. Submit all your documentations through the portal. Don't rush it. Take your time. We've been here since 1909, and I don't think we're closing up shop anytime soon. So take your time. Be detailed and thorough with the information that you put in the portal. And who knows? Maybe I might be popping up on your screen when you get selected for an interview. Okay. So in saying that, have a great rest of the Wednesday. We're prepping for the auto show, certainly starting this weekend on Friday.